Ever heard a performance so bad it was spooky? Let me tell you about a concert that became a legend, not for its beauty, but for its bone-chilling discord. The story takes us back to Christmas Eve, 1935, inside a grand cathedral in Belgium. The air is thick with anticipation. The pews are packed with families, their faces glowing in the soft candlelight, all waiting for the renowned cathedral choir to begin the midnight mass. This choir was the pride of the city, known for their angelic voices that were said to lift your spirit straight to the heavens. As the first notes of the opening hymn filled the vast stone hall, something felt off. It wasn't a glaring mistake, just a subtle sourness, a note that hung in the air a little too long, a little too flat. The congregation shifted uncomfortably. Was it just the acoustics? Maybe a singer was having an off night? But as the mass continued, the problem grew worse. Harmonies that were once pristine and soaring now clashed violently. Voices that were supposed to blend in perfect unity seemed to be fighting each other, creating a sound that was less holy and more unsettling. The beautiful, sacred music twisted into a strange, off-key mess. It was as if the choir was singing in a key that didn't exist, a key that grated on the ears and sent a strange shiver down the spine. The organist, bless his heart, tried his best to wrangle the sound back into something recognizable. He played louder, his fingers flying across the keys, attempting to drown out the discordant singers and guide them back to the right path. But it was no use. The choir seemed lost in their own world of musical chaos. That's when the whispers started. People sitting in the front pews swore they could hear something else beneath the cacophony. It was a low, eerie humming, a sound that didn't seem to be coming from the choir at all. They described it as a deep, resonant tone, like someone was humming from deep within the ancient stone walls of the cathedral itself. Was it a draft? A trick of the ear? Or was it something else? Those sitting further back experienced something different but equally strange. For them, the off-key singing created bizarre echoes that bounced around the cathedral's high, vaulted ceilings. They said it sounded like ghostly voices were answering the choir, mocking their out-of-tune performance with phantom-like whispers. The beautiful echoes that normally enhanced the music were now creating a chorus of spectral sounds, making the whole experience feel like a scene from a ghost story. The atmosphere, once festive and reverent, was now thick with an unnerving tension. Children began to cry, and adults exchanged worried glances. This was not the joyous celebration of Christmas they had come for. By the time the Mass ended, the congregation practically fled from the cathedral. The usual post-service chatter was replaced by hushed, anxious conversations. What had just happened? Was the choir possessed? Was the cathedral haunted? The story of the haunted Mass spread through the city like wildfire. It became the talk of the town, growing more embellished with each retelling. Some said they saw shadowy figures flitting in the organ loft. Others claimed the statues of saints were weeping. The legend of the choir that sang with ghosts was born. The cathedral officials, of course, were horrified by these rumors. They couldn't have their sacred space known as a haunted house. So they launched a full-scale investigation. They were determined to find a rational explanation for the bizarre events of that Christmas Eve. First, they focused on the eerie humming that people had reported. Architects and sound engineers were brought in. They tapped on every wall, inspected every stone, and climbed into every dusty crawlspace. They were looking for hidden passages, resonating pipes, or anything that could have produced that strange sound. After days of searching, what did they find? Absolutely nothing. Nothing more sinister than centuries of accumulated dust and a few sleepy spiders. The walls were solid. There were no secret hummers. Next, they examined the acoustics. Could the shape of the cathedral have created those ghostly echoes? Acousticians spent hours analyzing how sound traveled through the space. They clapped, they sang, they used scientific instruments to map the sound waves. Their conclusion? The cathedral's acoustics were, in fact, exceptional. They were designed to carry sound beautifully and clearly. While they could create powerful echoes, they couldn't selectively create ghostly ones. The echoes were simply amplifying what was being put into them. And what was being put into them that night was a mess. So, if it wasn't ghosts and it wasn't the building itself, what was the real cause? The investigation finally turned to the choir members. When interviewed, the truth began to emerge, and it was far more mundane than anyone had imagined. The choir director admitted that the weeks leading up to Christmas had been grueling. They had performed at numerous events, attended extra rehearsals, and were simply exhausted. The star soprano had come down with a terrible cold and was struggling to hit her high notes. The lead tenor had been celebrating a little too much the night before and was, to put it mildly, not at his best. The choir was a perfect storm of tired voices, sick singers, and poor coordination. They were all so worn out that they couldn't properly listen to each other. One singer would drift slightly off-key, and instead of correcting, the person next to them would follow, creating a domino effect of dissonance. The organist's frantic attempts to fix things only added to the confusion, as the singers couldn't tell if they should follow him or the person next to them. The eerie humming from the walls. It was likely the bass section, tired and struggling to hold their low notes, creating a resonant vibration that, in the cavernous space, seemed to emanate from the stones themselves and the ghostly echoes. They were just the normal acoustics of the cathedral, faithfully reproducing and amplifying the choir's out-of-tune singing, making it sound even more chaotic and strange. There was no supernatural event, no haunting, just a group of very tired people having a very, very bad day at work on the most important night of the year. When the real story came out, you might think the legend would die, but it didn't. In fact, it became even more famous. The Haunted Mass of 1935 was too good a story to let a little thing like the truth get in the way. People in the city still tell the tale, but now with a knowing wink. It's no longer a story about ghosts, but about a performance so spectacularly bad that it sounded supernatural. It's become a local legend, a cautionary tale for musicians, and, as one local historian famously put it, a haunting example of musical mediocrity. So, the next time you hear a truly terrible performance, remember the Belgian choir of 1935. It might not be a ghost in the machine, but just a bunch of tired people trying their best and failing spectacularly. It's a hilarious and oddly charming reminder that sometimes the most mundane explanation is the right one, even if the spooky version is way more fun to tell. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this piece of bizarre history, don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories. See you next time.